Let's have a bigger conversation. I get to start my show off with four very smart, differing opinion women here on set here in New York. I've got CNN special correspondent Jamie Gangel, Zerlina Maxwell, who is director of progressive media for Hillary Clinton's campaign, conservative commentator Carrie Sheffield, and criminal defense attorney Sarah Azari. So, ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
And let me just cut straight to the conservative on the panel here. We've laid it out. Roy Moore, Al Franken. This is hypocrisy on behalf of the president, no?
Well, I think it's important to point out that Trump did say that if the allegations were true, that Moore should step aside. So that's the other additional piece. I was never Trump conservative. We talked about this on your show. So I don't think that looking to Trump for the moral consistency that we need is something that we could expect consistently. That said, I think it's important to understand that Trump has opened the conversation here to expose the hypocrisy on the Democratic side as well as the Republican side.
We're going to get there on the Democratic side. We're going to get there. Trust me, we're going to go there. But you know, when you have all these other voices in Washington, Republicans who are stepping forward and saying, we believe the accuser's stories. And clearly he believes the accuser's story in the Al Franken case because he's said what he did about Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. What's different in this case with Roy Moore? Why is that not hypocritical of the president? Well,
as I said, Trump said that Moore should step aside if these allegations are true.
There's the caveat.
And I think the difference with the Franken thing is you had this picture, this very explicit picture, whereas in the Moore case, Trump is saying we need more evidence.
By the way, he hasn't said this personally. This has not come from the president directly. Go ahead.
Yes, you have a picture, but in the Moore case, you have multiple women coming forward and accounting the same, almost the same story, which makes it more believable, which makes it more credible. It makes the case against him. It's a pattern by this person. And, you know, I think there is no consistency. I think it's complete hypocrisy. This is a president who's going to leave the White House and go to the courthouse because he himself has at least 12 lawsuits for sexual misconduct that, you know, were brought about during the election. So he should take the fifth even on Twitter. He should not say a word, whether it's about a Republican or a Democrat.
Too late for that because we just read his two tweets there, right? Yeah. That he has gone there. Do you think it's because Al Franken's a Democrat, or because there's a picture, Zerlina, or because Al Franken's apologized that he was fair game for the president?
It's because Al Franken is a Democrat. Like, let's be clear about what we're talking about. This is because it's political, and because Roy Moore's allegations, you know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders has said President Trump doesn't like it when we're rehashing old allegations. I wonder why, because there are allegations about President Trump from 30 and 40 years ago, all the way up to most recently the Access Hollywood tape that are very problematic for him. But I think if true is actually saying, I don't believe the women. And so we have to understand that when you couch it in if true, you're not taking testimonial evidence as evidence. Yes, in Al Franken's case, there's a picture, but he apologized to the person that matters, which is the person that he mistreated. And I think that that's an important point here, and that's a distinction between President Trump and Al Franken. Al Franken apologized to the person he mistreated, called it out for being problematic, and called for an investigation of himself.
I think an apology is not sufficient. I think an investigation is warranted.
He already called for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's willing to go through that.
And
President Trump, there's an investigation into him. He's on tape confessing.
Sure.
Look, but the accuser here thinks the apology is genuine and sufficient. That's important as well. And with Roy Moore, he's now wanting a handwriting expert to come in and prove that it's not his handwriting in that yearbook. I mean, he's really denying everything.
Let me hear Jamie Gangel. I want to hear from you.
So a couple of things here. It absolutely is political that one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. Yeah. And let's just talk about it on a political level for a second. How long has it been since we played that Access Hollywood
been a minute.
tape?
Good reminder.
Okay, it is, but it had been a long, long time before that.
Yeah.
He brought that back on himself by doing this tweet. He also, once again, did a misspelling. That's not how you spell Frankenstein. But apart from that, there are two playbooks here. There is the, as you said, deny, deny, deny. And what happens when you do that? You become president of the United States.
Like Bill Clinton.
What have
and you pay $850,000.
Not an analogy.
No, it is an analogy because he normalized this behavior.
No,
Bill Clinton
was an affair. It was not sexual misconduct.
Then why did blame for all men who are behaving misogynistically?
He's normalized.
I'm not going. No, that is not true.
Hang on, ladies.
It is not Bill Clinton's fault that men behave this way.
You want to go to? Let's go to Bill Clinton. I think that we should talk about it. A couple pieces I read this week. Peter Baker in the New York Times wrote a piece called "What About Bill? Sexual Misconduct Debate Revives Question About Clinton." In Vox, Matthew Iglesias said Bill Clinton should have resigned. And now you have this Democratic senator who, let's all keep in mind, Kirsten Gillibrand took Hillary Clinton's old New York Senate seat, and she said this. Roll it.
Is it your view that the President Clinton should have stepped down at that time, given the allegations?
Yes, I think that is the appropriate response. But I think things have changed today, and I think under those circumstances, there should be a very different reaction. And I think in light of this conversation, we should have a very different conversation about President Trump and a very different conversation about allegations against him.
So hang on, swift response from a dear Clinton friend, Philippe Reigns, saying via Twitter, Kin Starr spent $70 million on a consensual, I can't even use this word on TV, bleep. Senate voted to keep POTUS, WJC, but not enough for you, Senator Gillibrand. Over 20 years, you took the Clintons' endorsements, money, and seat. Hypocrite, he says. Interesting strategy for 2020 primaries. Best of luck. So he's blasting Gillibrand, right, for her own hypocrisy, for taking money from the Clintons. But I think that in this new groundswell of everything we're experiencing, there is a new lens on Bill Clinton. Fair point. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely, because this goes beyond just Monica. This goes to the $850,000 that Bill Clinton paid to Paula Jones for sexual harassment. She only asked for $700,000, but she got $850,000 from Bill Clinton. That was payola. He didn't admit guilt, but why would you pay $850,000 unless you were doing something wrong? And this was not just her. It was case after case after case. And Hillary Clinton, she's victim shamed. You want to talk about listening to women? She called Monica Lewinsky, who was an intern at the time.
I have a problem blaming the women for the men's behavior.
Wait a second.
No,
it is
but
not fair to do that.
I believe you should.
It is
listen
not
to
fair
the
to
women.
do that.
You should listen to the women.
Yes,
And this is
yes,
Trump
you should.
won.
But
Trump
bringing
won
up
because
Hillary
of the
Clinton in a
hypocrisy.
conversation about Bill Clinton's behavior is not appropriate.
It is
I think
appropriate
we should focus
because
on the men's choices and the men's behavior. And all men need to reflect upon their behavior, not just famous ones and not just politicians.
No, but,
this is a cultural problem,
it is
not
a
something that we should just put all on Hillary Clinton's shoulders.
I'm not putting it all on
She
her
lost
shoulders.
to Trump, the guy on stage
Hillary Clinton went after Lewinsky, called her bimbo eruption.
Wait a second.
She did not
hang on,
support
hang on,
the
hang on,
victim.
hang on.
The Monica Lewinsky sex scandal was an affair with somebody that was of age, Monica Lewinsky. Lewinsky has never been an accuser. She has never since the time, not back then, not since then, ever said that he did this to me. It was unwanted. I didn't want to get touched. I mean, she's not an accuser, so now we're going to step in and on her behalf accuse him of some misconduct.
Well, she was
it was an extramarital affair that is not illegal. It might be immoral, it might be unethical, but it's not illegal to have an affair. Yes, it's wrong for the president to do that. But remember, the illegality with Clinton was because of the perjury over which he was impeached, not because he had an affair.
And Ken Starr was appointed a year and a half before he even met Monica.
Okay,
Monica was an intern.
Jamie Gingell has so patiently sat here quietly, and I just so value your opinion.
We want to hear from
you. You've covered it. Please weigh in.
So I would like to add this to the discussion, and that is we are in a different time and place.
Sure.
And I think we all have to recognize that.
Yeah.
And I am not saying that anyone, Bill Clinton or anybody else who did harassment was correct or deserves a pass or anything. But we keep using this term, in a watershed moment.
Yes.
And people are losing their jobs now when they apologize. They're losing their book contracts. They're losing
their parts in movies.
Their parts in movies. And it's not just in Hollywood or in media. People have lost their jobs in finance. And so I think at a certain point, and I don't know the answer to this, but at a certain point, we have to decide how we're going to handle this going forward in a reasonable way. Is everyone going to lose their job? Are we going to go back?
I mean, it looks like the future will be female. I don't know how many men will be left around in the workplace.
We need the men, ladies. We
do need the men. I think it's important to know, like, how many women have been stopped economically from advancing in their positions. That's what we should be worried about. We don't need to be worrying and crying over the men and their lost economic opportunities. What about the women who quit their job, the women who didn't advance, or maybe the women who got an advancement because they chose to engage in this game, which is toxic. And I am glad I didn't vote for Trump. I was a never Trump conservative. But at this moment, like you said, it is a watershed moment. The fact that Gretchen Carlson is now this powerful voice and she's collecting so many women together to expose this this moment, I think it's good. And I hope that even though we have different, political opinions, we can all come together and say,
It's not a
we want to
political
empower
issue.
women.
It's not a
But
political issue.
I just want to point out that it's 10 years, well, actually more than 40 years of feminist thinking that led us to this moment. I've been talking about this for a decade. I've been talking about rape culture for a decade, along with my colleagues, and people looked at me like I was crazy. But I think it's important that we all are understanding this in a new light.
Agree. And I just want to end with this. I thought what Debbie Dingell, and you and I were emailing about this, what Congresswoman Debbie Dingell made this point this morning as she was on TV and she was giving her own Me Too story. And we talk so much about the groundswell and the zeitgeist and the movement and everything else and feeling empowered, but there is a little bit of a but, and I just want to play this from her. She had talked about being groped by a, quote, prominent historical person and a former senator acting inappropriately towards her, but then she said this.
Hasn't the tide turned?
No, and I've said that to my colleagues. I don't think it's the watershed moment that so many people think it is, because I still think that for too many, there are consequences in naming who the person is. And what we have to do is change the culture, and that we have to have everybody speak up.
Final thought from you on that. She's right.
I completely agree. So full disclosure, Debbie and I went to college together. We've known each other a long time, and I texted her after that. I think she's absolutely correct. This is the beginning, not the end. And there are too many women out there, people who work as waitresses or who do not have the power anywhere close to it.
She said, tell the waitress in my hometown that feel like they can speak up without the repercussions, then this is still an issue.
This is the beginning.
And Gretchen Carlson, in her book Be Fierce, she has a chapter, like a handbook on how to do this. It's about collecting evidence. It's being systematic. It's exposing it. So maybe you're not going to get a national, your boss isn't going to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, but maybe the local newspaper. You can get attention. Your voice matters. Social media will help you amplify. There's so many things we can do, even if this is just the start. I agree.
We all have a voice. Thank you all, ladies, so very much. Serlina and Carrie and Sarah and Jamie. Thank you. Still ahead here on CNN. He will not step down. Those words from the wife of embattled Senate candidate Roy Moore. They're in Alabama, publicly speaking out, defending her husband. We'll hear from her. Also, what a new poll is revealing about Moore's support in his home state. And one of President Trump's closest confidants, son-in-law, Jared Kushner, being called out again for failing to turn over documents related to this Russia investigation. Is this a troubling pattern? We're going to talk about it. You're watching CNN. I'm Brooke Baldwin.